Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you guys are having an amazing Spooktober. I really want to share this story while the Squid Games topic was so hot. I mean, pretty much the whole globe has watched it and it's #1 on Netflix right now. So proud of my country, Korea. But did you know that one of the actors from Squid Game had a very difficult time that he had to deal with just a couple years ago when his son mysteriously passed away. I'm sure you guys have watched the Squid Games. If not, maybe you're not over 18. I don't recommend watching it if you are under 18. If you guys remember, there was a contestant that worked at a glass factory and he was looking at the glass to see if he could determine which one was the hard glass and which one was the faulty one. And he ended up being pushed by Sang-woo. And for me personally and for a lot of people, that was one of the most memorable scenes in the Squid Games. So we're going to be talking about actor Lee Sang-hee's son's mysterious death. Technically it's solved today, but technically for the family they still have a lot of questions and I would love to know what you guys think about this case. So actually over 10 years ago now, in 2010, actor Lee's eldest son, his name is Jin-soo, decided to go and study abroad in California, USA. Jin was in the 10th grade, I believe he was 19 years old. So you might be thinking it's odd that an 19-year-old is in the 10th grade, but actually that's not odd if you're a foreign exchange student or if you're a foreigner studying abroad. So it's easier where you can study a little bit longer. That's what I did as well. I went down a grade and I graduated a year later than my actual age. So I believe that's what the case was for Jin. So one day, Jin's mother was praying her usual early morning prayers. It was around 6 a.m. She all of a sudden says that her eldest son, Jin, walked right through the door. Now, she believed she was hallucinating, or maybe she was really tired, or she was missing her son a lot, so she was seeing things. And when she saw the hallucination of Jin, all of a sudden, he started to bleed from his mouth. And he said, "I miss you, Mom. I love you." She says that she was so shocked. Obviously, she just saw like an image of her eldest son bleeding from the mouth. This has never happened to her before, so she decided to call the family that Jin was staying with in California. Now at this time, 6 a.m. in Korea, she says that it was around 1 p.m. in California and he should be in school in gym class, just, having a normal day. She called the family that he was staying with at the time and asked them if they could ask the school if everything was okay. She just knew that something was wrong with her son. Shortly after, to her surprise, she got a call saying that Jin was actually on the way to the hospital and he was unconscious. So during this time, the school called 911 reporting that a 10th grader student was unconscious and there was some kind of a school fight. According to the paramedic team, he was unconscious when they came and his heart has already stopped beating on site. At first, according to the mother, she was alerted from the lady that she was on the phone with that Jin-soo was involved in a fight with a white male student who was much bigger than him and that he was specifically in the football team. When Jin got to the hospital, unfortunately, he was brain dead. At this moment, nobody knows what actually really happened and what made this healthy student go brain dead in just a matter of a couple minutes. The fastest ticket that actor Lee could get to California was 48 hours later after this incident. If you guys don't know, it takes over 11 hours of flight time to go from Korea to LA. So this moment was probably excruciating for the family. When the parents got there, Jin was already on a respiratory system that kept him manually alive. Right when they got there, they were faced with such a difficult decision because the doctors were saying that this respiratory system was very expensive and that you had to pay for it or he has to come off of it because there's almost no chance that he would be coming back alive as we know it. He was completely permanently brain dead. I don't know how much this respiratory system is, but obviously I'm guessing that it's something that 99% of the families cannot afford. That's why they decide to take off the respiratory. Now here is the really strange part that the family says. There were these donation staff members. You could actually choose to donate your family member's body. According to the family, if you do decide to donate, you get to have 48 hours with your loved ones. So actor Jin thought that, hey, let's do one last good thing before we say goodbye to our son and we could end up saving a lot of lives. And according to them, they could save about 8 lives by just donating his organs. Another odd thing Actor Lee says that when he first got to the hospital, there were reporters there already, and they were bombarding him with the questions, hey, you decided to donate your son's body. What made you decide that difficult decision? And he was like, what? What donations? Like, we just got here. So someone told these reporters some kind of odd information that they were already going to be donating before they even got there. In the very first police report, it says that the other student who fought with Shinsu used a deadly weapon. It doesn't specify what it was, and that this person has been arrested for murder. So now we potentially have a homicide case, and if you donate your organs, you can't do an autopsy. So this was also something that the family wasn't aware of at that moment. Pulled over Chin's mother and said, hey, let's go to a corner where there's no CCTV. So this nurse pulled over the mother and said, do you know what you just signed away? Do you know what actual donation is here? The mother obviously thought that they were just donating some major organs and that they were going to be able to take his body back to Korea and have a funeral. This nurse said, well, this is a secret, but every inch of his body was going to be donated minus his hair and head. Literally from his Adam's apple to his bones to blood vessels, everything will be gone. She didn't know this, and she almost signed away her whole body of her son, pretty much never having a funeral if they did that. When Shinsu's mother said that she changed her mind, this is not the donation she signed up for. Supposedly, the donation staff was very aggressive, saying that, you know, you can't really back off, this is gonna go really bad, and they were constantly, she used the word almost threatening her, telling her to change her decision. She says that she was being so pressured that she actually had to lock the room of where her son was so that no one could get in. And the people who were there, the nurses that were there, they actually don't understand why these donation people were being very aggressive with these people. Eventually, they were able to stop the donations, but it was time to take off the respiratory system. Shinsu's body went for an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death, and the first autopsy results were that he had a hemorrhage to the head, blunt force head trauma, and it was actually ruled a homicide. But soon after, family also found out that this other student wasn't a white male in the football team. It was actually another Korean student. Now this student was named Chan, and he was also just someone studying abroad. The story goes that they were outside having physical education or gym class, and Shinsu and Chan was assigned in the same group. I guess they had to run outside or something. Shortly after the class started, the students began to notice the two cursing at each other, then escalated to physical violence. The fight was less than 30 seconds, and when the teacher finally stopped the fight and told the two to go to principal's office, that's when Chin collapsed, falling unconscious. Chan was arrested, and during the interrogation, he confessed that he did kick Shinsu with his soccer shoes, which had a bit of hard spikes in it. He also confessed that he hit Chin 2 times in the face. Chan was then put into detention, waiting for his trial for murder. So the family thought, hey, the perpetrator is in jail, he's going to get his trial for murder, everything is going according to what it's supposed to go with the justice system. So the family in Korea, without speaking English, were having really a lot of knowledge about American justice system and the legal system, that they started to look for some lawyers. And from what they read online, they said that there's a lot of scam people and, you know, people who just take money and don't do the job in America. So they were looking for legit lawyers that could help them. So one day they got a call from, let's call him Mr. A, who claimed that he was a very powerful lawyer in America. He was Korean, also a Korean representing consul general, and he had a lot of connections. He's been working for 40 years in LA, and he could help this family get justice and also put in a civil lawsuit in order to get some compensation and the truth to be revealed. This lawyer A even came all the way to Korea to meet with the family. So the family thought that their case was in the hands of a very trustworthy lawyer. The lawyer also said that he will not be taking any retainer fees, which is upfront fee, and he will only ask for contingency fee if they win the civil lawsuit. So after that, the family called the lawyer multiple times asking for any updates on their case. And the lawyer never answered them. It was a year later when the family finally found out that Chan was actually released from detention and the case was dismissed. He was actually dismissed only 4 months after the incident, and the family was never notified. Chan also returned to Korea shortly after he was released. According to some of the students that attended the same school, they say that the two didn't look too close, but they weren't in bad terms either. One student recalls a time when Chin was joking around to Chan since he was 2 years older. Chan was 17 years old. Chin told Chan that he should treat him like a hyung and with respect because he was 2 years older. Even though this was America, they were two Korean students and that there needs to be at least some sort of respect. But according to their friends, they thought that this was just a friendly joke, but it could have been a start to some kind of tension between them. Another incident when Chin-soo invited Chan to his birthday party. But when Chan came to Jin's house, he said hi and taps his uncle's shoulder. Now, if you guys are Asian household, this is a big no-no. And I guess to Jin, for this being a very Korean household and for Chan also being Korean, he thought that this was very disrespectful, and his uncle even said, "Who are you to do that? This is a Korean household. I don't care if we're in America. You still need to give respect to your elders." So after this incident, a friend remembers Chin and Chan having a serious talk where Chin was telling Chan, hey, you could act around whatever you want to American people, but to your Korean fellows, let's have some respect. And you should not be doing that to my uncle who is a senior. And according to the friends, this is when the tension started to build. In the interrogation, Chan claims that it was Chin who threw the punch first during this fight. Chan reacted to it and he was just fighting for self-defense. The prosecutors also came to a conclusion that this was a mutual fight between the two, and Chin-soo was also the initial aggressor, and Chan was just protecting himself, and it ended up in an unfortunate situation, and there was no intent of murder. There was also witnesses called to the interrogation, and according to their classmates, they thought that it could have been Chin who threw the punch first because he was the older one and he was usually the one who said things first. Although nobody actually saw who threw the punch first, the police did take into consideration of the witnesses claim that it could have been Chin. But according to professionals, it's not likely that someone would be just dismissed of murder and just free to go after 4 months. After all, this is America where laws are so much stricter than a lot of other countries. So the documentary crew, 그것이 알고 싶다, tried to call some of the people that was in charge of this case back a couple years ago, and according to the police, they don't have the records anymore. It was destroyed, and even if they still have the records, they cannot release it because it was confidential. I don't know if this is normal to just destroy files. If cases have been closed, there's no need to keep it, but you just never know what could happen, especially for potential murder cases. Another odd mystery or a faulty mistake was that in the police report, the police reported that Chin had 0.10 blood alcohol content, which is legally drunk. Come to find out, the documentary crew actually found this out years later, that the hospital records show that Chin had below 0.010 blood alcohol level, which means that most likely he had no alcohol and he didn't drink at all. So maybe it was that the police saw 0.010 as 0.10 and accidentally wrote that in his reports. But this could be crucial because it could have led the prosecutors to release Chan thinking that Chin was drunk and he initiated the fight. Going back to a year later when the lawyer never picked up, the lawyer told Chin's family that he was no longer going to be a lawyer and he will not be pursuing a civil lawsuit. No one knows who this lawyer was and why he did what he did and why he never picked up, but it was certainly mysterious because during that 1 year after Chan was released, the family could have appealed the case, the family could have talked with the police, correct some mistakes. None of that was done because this lawyer was literally being so unprofessional. And because they weighted more of Chan's attorney's words versus literally like no one representing the family, this is one of the reasons potentially why Chan was released so early. Or the family also questioned that maybe it wasn't solely Chan, maybe there was another student involved. Just like in the first call, Chin's mother thought that it was a white male student who was in the football team. But the odd thing is the lady that Chin's mother talked to on the phone at first when this thing whole happened, she claimed that she never said the identity of who the perpetrator was. She never mentioned that it was a white student, it wasn't a football team. So she family believes that maybe Chan's mother was in such a shock that she started to make things up in her head, especially because this happened in America. Maybe she had this like a stereotype mixed with shock that she just thought that it was a male student who was in the football team. So that information is literally no one knows. The lady claimed that she never said it, and Chan's mother swears that she heard that. So, but in the reports, there's no mention of other students being involved. It was 3 years later when they decided to try and figure it out within the Korean criminal law because it wasn't obviously working in America. The family agreed to do another second autopsy, and this was hard for the family because now you have to take out a body that's been underground for 3 years, and again, this is technically like disrespect to the past member. They did do a second autopsy, but because the body has been already underground for so long, there was no conclusion. There was no new evidence that the autopsy can find. But they did find out that the first autopsy was only done in the head due to the family's request, because the family requested the autopsy to be done with the least amount of harm to the body. And that could be one of the reasons why they still haven't found the truth, because the first autopsy wasn't done properly. So the only thing that the experts could go off of was just a conclusion. And Korean experts believe the main cause of Chan's death was a hard blow to the upper stomach. Chan was known to be tall. He was in the soccer team and he also had a soccer shoes on. And being in the adrenaline fight mode rush, he probably hit a hard blow to Jin's upper stomach that could lead for the heart to go into cardiac arrest. And once the blood stops pumping into the brain, that's when he ultimately went brain dead. Finally, Chin's family sued Chan in Korea for assault's death. But the judge ruled that the defendant Chan was not guilty due to lack of evidence, and the family was distraught. So they decided to appeal the case with more evidence. In the appeal case, finally in 2019, which was 9 years after their son passed away, there was an amazing turnaround where the court ruled that Chan was guilty of causing the death, and Chan was finally sentenced to 3 years in jail. It is a known fact that winning an appeal is almost impossible. It's a very, very low chance of winning an appeal. The fact that they were able to win was amazing to the family. In a recent interview, actor Lee says that he's happy that Squid Games did so well, but still thinks of his son every day. So I wanted to know what you guys think, because there are different opinions here. Of course, what Chan did was horrific. He murdered someone. But like some people say in the police department, when you have a mutual fight, sometimes these deaths are unpredictable, and it's not like someone fights in order to kill someone, which is ultimately Chan's defense, saying that it was self-defense to protect himself. But of course, at the end of the day, because there was so much botched information here, from A, no one seeing who started the fight, B, having botched reports that could have potentially led for Chan to be released in America, C, having the freaking lawyer not do his job and they just lost great opportunities, and only 9 years later he finally was convicted in Korea. I loved watching the Squid Games, but to think that there was an actor who went such a tragic moment in his life really made me respect him even more as an actor and as a person. I would love to know what you guys have thought. Remember, you're liking this video, sharing, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell, because I reply to all my early birds. Really helps out to share this story. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next video.